And Edward puts his hand on Izzy and says, I need you here. Khan's face, like his micro expressions.
But it's like, it's not just his face, it's his entire body.
His whole body shuddered when Ed touched him.
It's this combination. It's so visceral.
Yeah.
There is a moment of relief there and a moment of release.
Welcome to our Flag Means fanfiction. This episode is going to be all about Ed and Izzy, or EdIzzy, or Black Hands, depending on how you like it. I know some people will call it Black Hands if it's like kinky and filthy and dirty and non-con, and then they'll call it EdIzzy if they have like some kind of feelings towards each other. But whatever you like. I am here today with Krill, who was just on our most recent Gay Pirate News Hour. I'm sure that if you are on Twitter and if you're into Izzy at all, you know who Krill is. Very excited to have them. And I also have Tessa with me, who you all know as our resident sexy ghost. That's the sound a sexy ghost makes.
That's my sexy ghost sound.
Yes, excellent. Thank you both for joining me in this exploration of what's sure to be one of the sickest ships in all of history.
Yeah.
Literally.
But before we get into all that, what's the most gay pirate thing that's happened to you this week, Tessa?
Well, so I'm in the middle of a nervous breakdown, and so
sorry for laughing at you.
No, please do. Every one of my mental illnesses is very stupid and funny. However, so I don't like to have nervous breakdowns in a boring way. So on Thursday, when I realized that I could no longer function and I was going to have to take a leave of absence, I got in my car and I drove for 4 hours to the city where I used to live so that I could show up at a smoker. It's basically relatively it's a bunch of fight clubs getting together to fight each other. And so I showed one of my best friends is one of the trainers, and so I just went and showed up at her fight club event to watch a bunch of anti-fascists punch each other a lot.
It's so EdIzzy coded.
Literally, I love that.
Amazing. Well, damn. Canada.
Yeah.
All right. So, Krill, what is the most gay pirate thing that's happened to you recently?
I mean, relating to the gay pirate fandom, I finally committed and bought my tickets to Columbus. So GalaxyCon is now definitely happening because they're non-refundable. So now I'm definitely going.
Excellent. That is very gay pirate-y.
Yeah.
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait. It's so surreal, but yeah.
It's going to be quite interesting. I know you weren't at SuperCon last year, Krill, but it was just like, there were some general our Flag Means Outs fans there, but it was like 90% Izzy Canyon. And
this one seems to be the same way, like looking at things as well, at least from what I've seen from my little corner. But
it feels like once a year we're going to choose a convention as ConCon, and this is the 2024 ConCon. So
can we pick one like my way next time, please? This shit's getting expensive.
Probably not.
Fucking Americans, god damn it.
I would love it though. I love any excuse to go back to England, and just going apparently isn't an excuse enough for me. So, well, the most gay pirate thing that's happened to me recently probably is that I was asked with my friends Mara and Athena, who are the other people who work on the pornathon that I'm constantly talking about. We were asked to be judges at a smutty fanfic reading competition.
Love.
Yeah. So it was an open mic thing, and people just brought their fanfic and read it on stage, and we judged it. So that was exciting. And while I was sitting there waiting for the show to begin, someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, sorry to bother you while you're like getting ready for the show," which I was looking at Instagram and
mentally preparing.
Right. Yeah. And she was like, I met you a couple months ago and we were talking about con. And I'm like, you're going to have to be more specific because I talk about con to everyone. And they were like, oh yeah. And they reminded me, and I knew who they were. Yeah, it was fun. And I was in my Izzy Swallows shirt, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm wearing his shirt. And they didn't know about the class or the shirt or anything, and I was like, oh well, go on YouTube and watch it.
That was legendary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I was representing Izzy at the porn reading. There was no Our Flag Means Death porn read there, but it was very interesting because there was someone who prepared this entire giant thing with voices and everything, and it was amazing. And then there was some people who just like someone came up and read just like lines from a fanfic. And then there was just like it was very interesting, but that's what you get with open mics. So fun little event. All right, we did the gay pirate things. Let's talk about Ed and Izzy.
Yes.
Yes.
So let's start out with some talk about the canon stuff that happened in the show. So as far as origins on their relationship, where does everybody fall? Do we think that they were both on ship with Hornigold? Do we think that Izzy got picked up by Ed once he was Blackbeard? Do we think like there's a lot of headcanons that have come about to where they met and how long they've been together, because some people, usually the aunties, are like, oh, Edward probably just found him 5 years ago and they're not even that close. So I don't think there's a single Canyon person that believes that. But what is your origin story for them?
As funny as I find the whole idea that like Ed met Izzy 6 weeks before season 1 started, because that is a really, really funny idea that Izzy is just genuinely that weird and intense. I do think that they've known each other since Hornigold's ship. I think that's like a 20-30 year marriage that's falling apart. That's how it appears to me. That's how it's always appeared to me. Like they know each other.
Yes.
Oh yeah, like 100%. Like I mean, there is no way that is not a really long-standing mutual commitment. And I mean, I think we have textual evidence for that. It's not just coming out of our asses. Season 2, when Izzy's, just lost his leg and they're having the whole conversation, and Izzy says, "Clean up your own mess. I'm not doing it. I've been doing it all my life." And that is not, those are not the words of a person you've known for like 5 weeks or 5 years or even 10 years, because that to me suggests that I can see them probably meeting on ship, maybe when Izzy is sort of like in his very late teens or early 20s, and Ed is in his sort of like mid-teens, has just killed his father. And I think that initial meeting and the initial shape of that relationship really continues to sort of shape the dynamic that we see in the show and throughout the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a theory that was tossed about a lot by the aunties when season 2 hadn't come out yet, because in season 2 they have that, plus they have Steed saying Blackbeard says you taught him everything.
Yes. Which I also just think is Ed talking out of his ass, but anyway.
I was so vindicated because I'd said that for like the whole gap between after I initially first watched it in December 22. I was saying like, funnily enough to my mom, because we used to go on walks and just debate Izzy a lot. We have very conflicting views about him, or at least we did when season 1 came. I was like, he is absolute. We've got screaming matches in the car. It was nuts.
Amazing.
But I was saying, like, I guarantee he helped build the whole Blackbeard thing, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, you don't." Some people on Twitter were like, "Don't say that. That's not true. That's not true." And then I said it in text. I'm sitting there like watching it. And I'm like, "Yeah. I told you. I said. I saw this."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember like all of the exact words from the dying speech because I've only watched that scene like twice. But I know that there was something said in there about what they've built as for Blackbeard and although I have some issues with that speech myself, but it's just a mess. But it's not the dying so much. It's the
garbage anyway.
Yeah, that's not what we're here to talk about.
No,
I'm sure we will talk about that again shortly. But I do really like, it seems a lot in fan fiction. My 2 favorites are either, like you said, Izzy's already like on the ship and Ed gets picked up and he kind of latches onto Izzy and follows him around, and he's
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing. I very much I picture young Ed getting very attached to Izzy. And I also I imagine Izzy being kind of resistant to that.
Oh yeah, I bet he would have been very annoyed that this kid is like following him around, not letting him do his work and like getting in his way.
He's just always underfoot and always just like turning up and just like literally materializing out of thin air. Like Izzy's trying to do something and suddenly Ed just like pops down from like the fucking thing and he's just like, what's going on? It's just like, oh my fucking God.
And then Ed, being how he is, was probably like very like crazy and carefree and like, whatever, let's just go do fighting, and was getting in trouble. And you're right. And like,
but brilliant.
Having to save him.
Yeah.
I can see that happening many times.
And I can see him sort of like not thinking much of Ed, and then slowly realizing how smart this kid is.
Yes.
And how quickly he's learning. And that combination of, I think, both admiration and fear for him because of that recklessness. Yeah.
I love that trope, and I love the one where Ed is like either a new captain, like just fresh, or he's on Hornigold's ship and is just not like high up yet, and they raid like a Navy ship that Izzy is on, and Izzy is immediately like, no, I'm gonna go with you guys. And then from there, whatever happens. But I really like that a lot too.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I love that.
Also great.
Yeah, especially like if it's on Hornigold's ship, because then they can conspire to like mutiny against him and stuff.
Absolutely.
But I love the idea of Izzy being in the Navy because he is so very put together and like has his rules that have to be followed. And if you don't follow them, there's hell to pay and things have to be done a certain way. And you guys aren't working hard enough and all that. And that just screams like military type training to me.
I fully believe that. Like, honestly, it makes so much sense that everything we know about Izzy, like, certainly everything that I know about Izzy as well as somebody who lives in the country that he's from, and like the history and stuff and like the class and all that aspect of it, it makes sense that he would have gone down that route, I think, personally.
Yeah. And I mean, like, definitely like an enlisted man, not an officer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also when he brings in the Navy to Jackie's, there's kind of like an ease to that about the way that he
understands how they're reacting and sort of what
and he says like they don't like being here either, and they like follow him to this pirate. They follow this pirate to this pirate bar. Like there has to have been some kind of a connection, I think, there to have any kind of trust whatsoever. But yeah, I like him being in the Navy, and I do like him. Probably something was going on while he was in the Navy that he wasn't a fan of, to where like the pirates came and he was like, all right, fuck this, I'm going with you guys. So and then as he sees how brilliant Edward is and his potential and everything, when they get a chance to mutiny on Hornigold and then build this whole legend, and Izzy's all for it. Our little guys. So here's another greatly debated thing in the fandom. Have they fucked? Canon wise?
Like, I'm of two minds because I want to say yes because
you want to say yes.
Because I want to say yes. But honestly, like, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that they have fucked, because I think that the intensity of that entanglement has to at least in part derive from like the unbelievable unresolved sexual tension between them. Like, absolutely fucking towering UST.
For real, especially on Izzy's end. And
I think more on Ed's than we necessarily get to see, because I think that, and again, it's that degree of entanglement where in Ed, I think it's far more sublimated. And I think that may come from I think that he was probably more open about his interest early on. And I think that Izzy initially probably shut it down, both because Ed was very young and various other reasons related to Izzy's own sort of like general tense little freakness. And so I feel like Ed has kind of put that away and has sort of like shoved that desire away and sort of like just doesn't really look at it anymore. Whereas I think it's much closer to the surface for Izzy.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember if it was, I just finished the Refitting at Sea series like a week or two ago. And I think that's the one where in the beginning, when they first are getting together, there was something about like how Ed had made an attempt before and Izzy had like turned him down. And then Ed just thought that was because Izzy isn't interested, but it was because of some kind of you know, how Izzy's brain is like, and he can't like, there's a hierarchy here and there's that. And like, a lot of people after season 1 were all like, oh no, Izzy's homophobic, which I don't.
Those yearning fucking looks.
That was yearning.
You
like,
cannot,
no.
Yeah,
and,
no.
and
I have a day off, like, genuinely.
like there was, I saw literally no evidence. Like,
No.
There was
like,
none.
he was mad that Pete and Lucius weren't working, not that they were
Right.
fucking.
And like
Right.
The pantry.
the man he loves just got with someone else and basically
Exactly.
ignored him for like however long it was. Like, that's not homophobia. He's upset.
Yeah.
Like, he's been taken from his routine.
Yeah.
No one's telling him what the fuck's going on. No one's listening to him. He doesn't know they're on salary. He thinks that because they're not doing anything, they're all going to starve to death if they don't actually start getting some work done. No one's telling him what's going on, and the one guy who normally speaks to him is ignoring him.
I wish that they had on screen when Izzy finds out that like Steed's paying these guys all a salary.
Yes.
Please. Does he know? Like, it was never made apparent as far as I can remember.
I feel like he has to know at some point. Somebody has to say, we're getting paid no matter what. So, like,
Oh,
feel like
for his
somebody's-
own sake, I hope so. For sake of his blood pressure, apart from anything
I
else.
feel like somebody's looking after the books, and I feel like plausibly it's probably Izzy because I don't think anybody else really gives a shit. So at some point he's probably looked through and been like, "What the fuck?"
yeah.
And then where's his share?
Exactly right. He'd better be getting a fucking raise.
I don't know. Do you think he would want it if he hasn't felt like he's earned it?
Oh, he wouldn't, would he? He'd refuse it on principle.
Probably.
Because that's what he's for like.
I don't know. I think. Well, I mean,
Well, he might think
I guess
he's
Andy
dealing with
loves
Steed's
that
crew.
conversation.
Yeah. Steed tax.
Yes, the Steed tax. But yeah, I've seen many of them where, well, okay, so first of all, the most basic thing to know about Ed and Izzy is that they are both shit at communicating, especially feelings and emotions.
God.
So going off that, there's a lot of fanfics where Ed and Izzy think that they're being very openly like flirting with each other or making their intentions known to each other where they really absolutely are not.
Yes.
And one of them can't figure out what the other one wants, or does he like me? And he
That's a
must
good point.
not, because I've been doing all this to show him that I'm into him and he's never said anything back. So, which is like,
Ed and Izzy and their incompatible love languages.
yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fast.
Yeah.
It's
It is.
so good.
It is wild.
Delicious.
So I love that everybody has to tell, especially with Ed. It happens with both Steed and Izzy. I think where people have to be like, okay, but you like this guy. Like
Yeah.
Lucius has to literally put like Lucius.
Yeah.
He's like, my God, these repressed queers. Like,
Delicious.
Dumbest genius.
yeah.
Honestly.
So, yeah, I feel the same. I feel like they probably canonically have not. I would have said, like, between seasons 1 and 2, I probably would have said, yes, they have. Like, if I hadn't had the information from season 2, just because of how their interactions are and everything. And there's, like, in that last episode, Ed is, like, choking Izzy and feeding him a toe. And Izzy's, like, into it. I'm just like, something's going on here. But now, after seeing season 2, and he's just very, like everything that he says about Ed in the whole second season is like, yeah, I love him, but
I for the longest time, like certainly between seasons, I was convinced they'd fucked exactly once, like 3 months after like Ed had joined the ship, and then that just meant that's why Izzy got so weird, because he had this one taste of what he wanted once, and then. But I do agree, like season 2 had completely changed it up. I was like hardcore dying for that dynamic. Like it happened exactly once. Ed was like, "That was cool. Carry on with my life," and Izzy was like, "This is good. This is I'm going to base my personality on for the rest of my days."
Yeah.
I was set on that.
Yeah, there's a lot, like, so What else in my thing? Okay, so like, okay, let's take this back and go through a little bit of the canon stuff, like blow by blow, right? So the first time we see Izzy is with Steed. Well, not with Steed, but like this is the first episode with where they interact and everything. And that is like, that's some hardcore UST right there, because just when Con O'Neill is on the screen with somebody, there is just a overwhelming, like I know that I'm making these gestures that you podcast people can't see, but
he's a man who has chemistry. Like, it doesn't matter or what.
An aura of sexual tension that just like, like the blob, it just like pours out over everyone he's near. But so in episode 2, there's that all going on with him and Steed. And then in episode 3 is when we first see Ed, but not really much. We just see like the back of him for the most part, where Izzy's talking to him. And in that episode, they have a very formal interaction every time they talk. And that's done to make it known that this is the boss and this is his lackey. But it's a formal way of interacting that they rarely have again throughout the rest of the series. Even when Izzy's all like, Captain this or whatever, and yes, boss and blah, blah, blah. It's not like it was in that episode where he's just like very, I'm glad that they put in the like, oh, Edward, can't I just send the boys? The whole like
coded moment.
Literally.
And so like, it is super formal, but at the same time, Izzy's lying to him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, stupid fucking Steed Bonnet, you know, like, I wouldn't call that like a betrayal of Ed, but it's interesting because if Ed had believed Izzy there, well, there's no more show.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So that's a really interesting interaction with them compared to the rest of their interactions. Yeah. And then we see
like the initial introduction of Ed and Izzy is like classic lesbian bed death.
That's an amazing comparison there. I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
which is not really a thing, but like
it is now, I guess.
Then we see Ed for the first time, like in all his glory at the end of the episode, and we assume obviously Izzy is also on that ship somewhere,
doing some fancy fighting.
Doing some fancy sword. What does Steed call it?
Fancy.
He says fancy sword play or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, but we don't see him, and apparently some of their guys died there because, as he says that in the next episode.
Yeah.
So, and this is all for some guy that Edward has decided he has a crush on before he's even met him.
To the nameless leather daddies.
Oh, I called them the bald Blackbeard's anonymous leather daddies.
I'm obsessed with that, actually. That has been a 3 tag.
So, okay, so now they're all in the picture. And then here, episode 4 is where we get the disgruntled marriage dynamic between Ed and Izzy for the first time. And that whole episode is a whole different shift from what we saw between the two of them in episode 3. Because they're just like bickering the whole episode, basically. And it starts with, what do these clouds look like? And Izzy's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? But then later in the episode, he's like, this is why Izzy hasn't decided to just fucking kill him yet over the years, because it all has some kind of reasoning somewhere. Like, there is a reason to talk about the clouds. But Izzy was so preoccupied with, why the fuck are we on this guy's ship and not killing these people, that he doesn't have time to think about the clouds. So, and then we have, when Edward's so excited to be there and all these things, he's like, why don't we have a bird guy, Izzy? Look at this little ship, Izzy. And Izzy's just like fucking not into it. And it's like...
But also, why don't we have a bird guy? It's because you kill all the pets.
Yeah. I suppose if it's just a wild seagull that is trained to come hang out, it's not necessarily a pet. Because when we call Carl a pet, Carl wasn't a pet.
Yeah.
Carl's his own man.
Right.
He's got a wife and a family.
But I suppose if you're going to have a bird like Carl, you need a bird guy like Buttons. And where are you going to find that? So
yeah, there's not many of them knocking about for you to just pick as and when.
Yeah. So episode 4 is kind of sad that way, because like Ed is actually this is one of the only times that he's like, Izzy, look at this. Izzy, look, Izzy. And then from there on, the rest of their relationship is like crazy in one way or another.
Yeah.
So there's all this, and Steed's incompetent, and et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end of episode 4, Izzy tries to leave.
Yes, he does. And this is what I keep reminding Twitter every couple of weeks.
Izzy tries to walk away from Ed. Now, who knows if he would have stayed gone, because there's an awful lot of fanfics where he leaves but then comes back. But he did try to leave, and Ed manipulated him into staying.
I need you here.
Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss.
And then he's like, oh, you can take over as Blackbeard, etc., like all this shit. And Izzy's all like, oh, yeah, I can be the captain, which is not good, as we learn later. He's not a good captain.
But I don't, in that interaction, I don't get the impression that he really wants that. Like,
I think he's saying what he thinks Edward wants to hear.
Yeah. And I think he's saying what he thinks he ought to say, but what he really wants and what he's really getting from it is hearing, I need you.
Yes. And I mean, I think Izzy, when I watched season 1 the first time, I was like, oh, Izzy loves Blackbeard, not Ed. And there's a lot of people that still think that. I don't think that after having watched it several times. But there is a almost holiness about Blackbeard.
There is a worshipful quality.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that he feels that about Ed and about Blackbeard.
Right. But it's different. Like Blackbeard's like this entity.
This thing that they created together, this very powerful thing.
Blackbeard's the father and Ed is the son. And
Steed's dick is the Holy Ghost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Izzy's just a very confused priest. But seriously, like, so I think part of him being like, yeah, I could be Blackbeard is like his, I will do anything for Blackbeard, the concept. Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
he was a bad captain. He would have been an even worse Blackbeard. Come on. So, but yeah, Edward manipulates him into staying, and he's like, well, yeah, you still got it, I know. And he turns around and makes this like sad face, and it's just God that some of Khan's acting in this episode, like there's a bunch of little this and that's whatever throughout the episode, but at the end there, when they're having that scene and Edward puts his hand on Izzy and says, I need you here, Khan's face, like his micro expressions.
But it's like, it's not just his face, it's his entire body.
His whole body shuddered when Ed touched him.
It's this combination. It's so visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the reaction to Ed's touch, and I think there is a moment of relief there and a moment of release, but also a need to keep that under wraps, a need to keep that from being seen. And just, my God, the physicality of that moment and the performance of that moment is fucking spectacular.
It's like so much acting in 3 seconds.
It's insane.
Just amazing.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. So, if you are listening and are not an EdIzzy person, I ask you to go back and watch that scene and watch Khan's face, watch everything that's happening.
Body.
All his, like, his little tiny things that he puts into the character. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So then in episode 5, we don't see a lot. Actually, I don't think we see Ed and Izzy together when they're like on the ship where he's trying to teach Steed how to raid, but they don't really interact. So that's the party scene, the party episode where we were deprived of the scene where Izzy puts bows in Ed's beard.
Fucking travesty.
Oh my God.
That would have been amazing.
Oh God.
So
his micro expressions in that scene.
Oh my God.
So if you're not that fic, and my friend had a whole like mock-up of the drawing he was going to do to go alongside it, and then both of us were like, we literally don't have time to do this, but we might finish it at some point.
Yes. If you're not aware, listening to this, David Jenkins has said that was it David or Alex?
Yeah, I think it was Jenkins.
I think it was David. Yeah,
said that Izzy is the one who put the bows in Edward's beard for the party scene when he's Jeff the accountant. And Khan has said a couple different things because he's told people that they filmed that scene and it just wasn't used. But he told me that he doesn't remember filming that scene. I was like, so you did not actually put Bose and Taika's beard, and he was like, well, I don't remember doing that. And I'm like, okay, not to say that means it didn't happen, but I feel like you'd remember that.
Yeah.
So who knows? There could be, of course, Con doesn't remember things. So so there could be a scene somewhere out there that's
release the bow cut.
The bow cut.
I want to see it. So that would have been great in that episode. But okay, that happens. And then episode 6, which is my favorite of season 1. It's probably my favorite episode of the whole series, honestly, because it just has everything in it. And it's got all the sword fighting, and it's got all the theater and all the good stuff. And we have now here is where Izzy is manipulating Steed and is dragging Edward along into it. And we have their gay little Hamlet scene in the library, and Edward is confronted by Izzy and Ivan and Fang about like, okay, what are you doing? Like, let's get rid of this guy. And it rarely, I don't know. It's interesting because he'll confront Edward about like smaller things, and he constantly will confront him about Steed, but this seemed very serious, I think, in episode 6 when he leaves Ed hanging, literally. And
Yes.
Oh my god,
that's a great scene too with the two.
that's brilliant.
Where he's like so frustrated he can't even speak, and he like hops off the capstan and is just like fuck you. And
no, everything.
Yeah, I love that so much. And he's like, "Why is your head in my balls?"
No, you're tightening it.
Yeah, which you'd think that you'd feel like they've done this a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
It gives you
But again, I think it's just like Izzy is so flustered.
He's so
like,
upset about all of this that he's like, I can't even think straight. I can't.
Yes.
Does Izzy ever think straight?
Not bloody optimal. No. So we have that. We have the I'll happily do it for you. Send him to doggy heaven. All this great stuff.
Oh, look in that scene.
It's gorgeous.
God. The gaze.
Yeah. And I don't think this is Izzy manipulating Ed. This is Ed has said this is what we're gonna do, and Izzy's like, okay, you have like he's being practical. Like if we're gonna kill this guy, like it has to happen now. Like what do you do? What do you think?
I think there may be I think there is a level on which Izzy has realized that Ed was jerking his chain with that plan. But I think there is a level of self-deception happening here. Because like and it's the kind of self-deception that happens and that I feel like a lot of us have experienced this when like your partner has lied to you. You know that they are like that this is going really badly and that this is just like basically fucked. But you also know that if you call them on that lie, that's it. It blows up. And it's that sort of that need to sort of be like, no. Okay, this is okay. This is happening. This is the plan. He said it was the plan, and I trust him, and we're gonna do the plan. And so there's that kind of push that is sort of like based not necessarily in sort of like a full deep belief that like, oh yeah, this is totally the plan, but in a desperation to sort of like hold on to that as the plan.
Yeah.
And I think that in this, I don't know, it's tough. So the last episode in 5, when they're off at the party and Izzy is left with his incompetent crew, that's like just adding to, it's like Izzy's like level of anger is like about to
He's so stressed.
He is. And then in 6, it's like he's having these interactions with Steed, and he's like, all right, listen, this is kind of like a me or him moment. Like, and that's what it kind of boils down to at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, and how about
You're gonna choose your wife or this floozy?
How about we didn't even mention in the very beginning of the episode where Ed and Steed are sword fighting and Izzy's
Oh my god.
And he thinks they're fucking, like that's huge.
Oh yeah.
And that happens in a fix a lot where Izzy is like, well, you two were, and they're like, no, we weren't. Like, but does he ever find out that they
like this is never resolved?
So that's rough.
Many things
that he thinks, and like right on the deck too.
Yeah.
And that scene, if you like pause it and like look at Khan's face, he has tears in his eyes.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Izzy, babe.
Izzy,
Which again,
baby.
like he's trying to
Baby.
give anger and indignation, but like what he's actually giving is sad wet dog.
Yeah.
Heart's just been broken, but
And
trying to be pissed off about it rather than being upset about it.
Yes, exactly.
And so when Ed doesn't kill Steed during the fuckery, to Izzy at that point, Ed has kind of already chosen Steed over him.
Yeah.
Which is then like, okay, let's do this as a duel, and then I will win because I'm the best.
Yes.
He loses on a technicality, which is, first of all, incorrect, but second of all, we can't keep this show to actual factual standards here. So Izzy losing to Steed Bonnet on a technicality, I think it would have been so much better if Steed had actually bested him, because this is the second time he's losing to him, really, because in the second episode
it was an ambush, completely unprofessional, but like
right, like for a pirate. So here, like, everything is at stake for Izzy here, everything, because the loser has to leave the ship.
Yeah.
So, oh my God. And the way he looks at Ed when he loses, and
Also,
Ed just shrugs at him.
Ed, you fucking coward.
Ed, you bitch.
Yeah.
I can't.
You know? Yeah.
So yeah, Ed shrugs at him, and then we cut to the next morning. Izzy's leaving, and he's a pox upon all of you. And Ed's like, "It didn't have to be like this. We could have talked it out." And I'm like, "Could you?"
Well, this was your call to make. Like you could have spoken up a bit earlier and maybe tried to help your
if you wanted
wife
to
out.
talk this out, we could be talking it out right now.
Ed, you ignored him for weeks. Like you could have talked about this sooner.
Right.
Yes.
So everyone's angry. Izzy's angry. And I'm like, yeah, I know Izzy did this to himself in a way, but Jesus Christ.
It's everybody is fucking up.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to Ed and Izzy not being able to communicate what they fucking want to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So then Izzy and Jackie's, and he's really, and here's what people don't understand. People constantly are like, but Izzy sold Ed out. And it's like, no,
he did not. He sold Steed out. He tried to get Ed out of there. That was the whole point.
And he made multiple contingency plans to get Ed out safely.
Yeah, it seems now we're not going to get into Siege Izzy because that's a whole nother thing. I don't know that in canon verse Izzy likes Jack much.
But Jack likes him.
Jack really likes him.
He does. He likes him enough that but he calls him a sentimental bastard. And so from that we get, yes, he went out of his way to enlist this guy that probably I can just picture him not liking him in canon because of what he does to Ed and how Ed acts when he's around, because that's not Izzy scene at all. And that's like the only thing Steed and Izzy have in common. And I love fics like that where Jack comes on the boat and they're both there and they're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, because he's so abrasive in a way that Izzy is just like, so.
Izzy is fastidious.
Yeah.
In a different way to Steed, but they're both fastidious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he went to Jack and like asked for help so that he could save Ed, and made sure that, we're selling out Steed, but Ed's going to be safe and everything's going to be fine. And then when they come back and Ed like gives his life over basically to save Steed, and then he's going away too. And Izzy just fucking can't. Like, it's like, this is not how this is supposed to go. This guy,
it couldn't will.
Like, this is the thing. I will point out that I don't think that Izzy's captaining is necessarily an accurate view of his genuine leadership skills, because that man is a mess.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Plus, he has a whole crew of people at that point that really actively hate him to begin with. If he was made captain on the Queen Anne's Revenge, that would have been a different story.
Yes.
I still don't think he would have been great at it. He's not like he rules. He needs someone to tell him what to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it takes to make Izzy happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we get that lovely, lovely moment where Ed punches him. Oh God, I love that.
Golf clapping.
Yeah. And there, who was it? Ivan, this like nice hit boss or something.
Yeah.
And Izzy's like, that was fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's where I picked that up from, because I say that all the time whenever somebody roasts me in a Discord server, and that's where I got that from. Oh, God.
Yeah. So that's so good. And then they go and Ed's like, do you really want to lick the king's boots? Think about what you're doing. And Ed just looks at him and signs it like, damn, these two have such issues.
Yeah. Now that marriage is falling apart.
It is.
If one of them had said they like the other one, like a year ago, none of this would have happened.
Literally, it would have been fine.
At any time in the past 30 years.
Right. So, okay. So then we have the last episode. Like everything, Izzy's captain, he's about to be thrown overboard. Ed pops up back on the ship and everything's cool. Great timing, Ed. And
yep, fantastic timing, Ed. Thank you.
Somebody on Twitter was like, they should have still thrown him over. Like he could have used like getting tossed in the water. That would have like helped humble him or something. And someone was like, bro, he was attached to the anchor. Like,
yeah, he's not coming back. There was no.
Yeah, you don't fish somebody out after that. I mean, in this show in season 1, maybe you do.
Yeah, maybe in season 1, but
season 2, I guess it depends who it happens to.
Well, we're getting there. So last episode of season 1, where all hell breaks loose and this becomes less of a comedy, at least on board the Revenge, because Steed's having a good old time with his dramatics over in Barbados. So Ed goes into breakup robe era. Izzy doesn't know what to do with this. Him coming out and being like, Ed's feeling great. Everything's fine, but don't worry about him.
Izzy is me, obviously, because I also don't know what to do when people like I've had situations where friends have been upset, or like we've been on a night out, and I've been like, I'm just going to leave you with this guy, and I'm going to go and sit over here because I don't know what to do. So I really fully identify with Izzy
when he says exactly yes, like and pulls Lucius aside and is looking like he'd rather do anything else in the world besides send Lucius down to Ed.
Yeah. Physical agony over this.
Yes.
And then they have their talent show thing. It's not the talent show, it's the Ed show. Izzy has 2 facial expressions in this scene that are possibly my favorite of him ever. The first one, when Ed's singing, when they cut to Izzy, and he's just like he can't even, it's like one of the best reaction images ever. And then the second, when he says he's called Edward, call him Blackbeard, and Ed's like, no, I want to be called Edward. And Izzy just looks like, what the fuck is happening here?
Agony.
Everything's different. Izzy goes back to the cabin with Ed. He's like, this is Blackbeard, and you're not some namby-pamby wanting his boyfriend's robe and all this. So, and then we get a little glimpse of Kraken from the choking, which Izzy loves.
Mm-hmm. He does. He's
so happy. He's like,
God, this is DSM.
Yes. Yeah. And the first time I watched the show, I hated Izzy for that moment, because I was all into Ed and Steed watching the show for the first time. And I was like, well, that's what broke him. And it was. I mean, he was already down bad, but he was like starting to, I don't know, repress in a way that was happy.
I'm not convinced of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we would have to have seen what happened from there.
But to me, that is not a person who is actually managing their feelings well. That is a person who is suppressing shit.
Yes.
And that is a person who, given sort of what we see of Ed sort of throughout the rest of the show and throughout the rest of the series, that is a person who is about a quarter of an inch away from snapping and burning the entire ship in the middle of the night.
Yes, yeah, that's
absolutely.
It's like when you suddenly decide to go, when you're feeling really, really bad and suddenly decide to tidy up your entire inbox. This is like the pirate equivalent of that. Like getting all your affairs in order because you're about to do something very, very reckless. That's what that felt like to me when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Everyone in this show is real good at disassociating and repressing and pretending that things are
you
fine.
talking about the 3 of us or our flag means?
Not suppressing anything.
Regardless, whether Ed was about to snap or not, this is the snap.
Yes.
This is what did it. So in that way, it is Izzy's doing. But
I maintain that something would have done it.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's very probable. But I know why I was mad at Izzy the first time for this. So that happens. The toe happens. Ed goes into full on like psycho era Ed with the makeup, and Izzy is like
14-year-old girl who's been let loose at a Hot Topic.
yes.
Yeah.
Izzy is like, mark me down as scared and horny, and then he's like, Blackbeard is himself again, and it's like,
But again, the complexity of that facial expression, that is not a man who is happy with the outcome of what's happening.
he's shaking.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
He is fucking scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then at the very end of that episode, we see they're standing next to each other and they're doing the whole, now we're going on our Dark Days tour, and then the season ends. So now release all the fan fiction about Ed and Izzy having hate sex. And
That was such a good era.
it was as much as it sucked to be waiting for season 2, the possibilities that fanfic generated for what happens next were incredible.
Like, I joined the fandom like really late, certainly compared to a lot of you, because obviously it wasn't available in my country. I had to absolutely not watch it illegally. I don't condone that sort of behavior.
Yeah,
I was still
I do.
really, really well fed. Glad we're on the same page. I was still really, really well fed, like certainly because I started out being like hardcore into Ed and Steed, and then it was the Ouija on Wednesday with David Farney that slipped me in, that basically had me falling into the Izzy side of things. But I was having a great time. Like, honestly, that,
Yeah.
what was it, 8-month period before the thing came out was great.
Yes. A powerful time.
So good. So good.
Okay, so that covers the whole first season of Ed and Izzy interactions and a little bit of what we think their history and their backlog is. And so since it's already been so long in this episode and we've only covered the first season and a handful of things, we're going to make this a 2-parter, and we're going to come back and do season 2 on a different date and then cover some more of like what we'd like to see of them in fan fiction. So look forward to that. You'll have to come back and listen to it again. And maybe I might have some little tidbits from Con O'Neill about Ed and Izzy to tease you with for the next episode. So I will tell you that Con has told me today that he loved all the last season stuff with Taika. And he said, I felt we pushed the boundaries a bit, and it was a joy to have Taika to spark off. And then he said, I can't believe they didn't give him an Emmy nod for the second season. And then I told him, no, you are the one who needs an Emmy nod for the second season. But anyhow, we're going to come back and do that. So for today, what we're going to wrap up with is we're going to each do one fic rec for an EdIzzy fic that we love. And go, Tessa, you go first.
Okay. So this is mostly smut. This is sort of one of the earliest fics that I bookmarked. And so it's called That Should Be Mine by MissHazelA. And basically it's a fic where so it's pre-canon. So it's like earlier in their relationship. And Izzy is basically very professional and very buttoned up on the ship. And then a complete fucking slut off the ship, which Ed, when he finds out about it, is immediately just driven insane by. So you've got jealousy and possessiveness and just like some fucking, which is fantastic.
I love that. That's
Love
the
that.
best.
Yes.
And of course, it's always the EdIzzy smut just hits different.
Seriously.
It really does. Even
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
even for a long time after season 2, I couldn't read anything with Ed in it really. But the like EdIzzy alone stuff, like still is just a classic.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to recommend a story that I wrote. It's called A Prize for Claiming, and my AO3 is spookyscarygenderfuck. And it was written for Kinktober 2 years ago. And it's a short one. It's 2K, and the prompts were clothed sex and humiliation kink, which that's so Izzy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just a real quick one about a ritual that Ed and Izzy have when they get back from a successful raid, where Ed totally ravishes Izzy below deck and everybody has a great time. And it is very filthy, but it has a surprisingly sweet ending. And I say that in the like notes for this fic or in the tags, and then all the comments in it are like, you told me it was sweet at the end, but I forgot. And it's so sweet at the end. So this one's got a little bit of all of that. So that is Prize for Claiming by spookyscarygenderfuck. And Krill, what is your rec?
So I'm recommending a little one shot. It's only just over 4,000 words. It's called Us Dinner. So the fic is about, it's a modern AU, because that's generally what I tend to read at this point, because that's what it seems to be more of. It's Ed and Izzy, roommates, and Izzy seems upset for some reason, and Ed realizes he's forgotten their roommate anniversary, and the whole fic is about him like suddenly rushing to put this really nice dinner together for Izzy. And it is the best written like modern Ed I've ever come across. Oh. And it's really cute. It's really funny. Like, my comment when I finished reading the fic, I just typed in there, I was like, this is the best fic in the world. 10 out of 10, and then just left it at that. So like it's really cute. Like, yeah, recommend that one.
Excellent. I'm excited to read that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I have read that actually. So very cool. If you guys will post those links in our chat, I'll send them the links. And okay, so aside from that, what are you doing and where can people find you? Tessa, I know that people cannot find you.
No, they haven't. I'm having a nervous breakdown. That's what I'm doing. And where can people find me? Face down on my floor, mostly.
That's hot. What are you up to and where can people find you?
You can find me in a pub in Sheffield, or alternatively, if that's a bit far for you to travel, you can find me on Twitter at Krill_Collins, AO3 Krill Collins, no underscore. I write a Stizzy Strictly Come Dancing AU that I have just promised I'm going to update this week. And alternatively, if you're coming to Alnwick for Con's short film premiere, I am the shorter person. I'll be the shorter person in a pink fur coat.
Oh, pink. That's my favorite color.
Yep.
Love that. Well, what am I doing? I am getting ready for Halloween, and I am hosting a Halloween party at the bar. And then in November, on November 9th, I am hosting our third Calypso's birthday at the bar. So if you are anywhere near Pittsburgh, plan to come to Pittsburgh for November 9th and have a super good time with all of the gay pirates. It is always a good time. And if you are into the show,
not tempted.
You should just do it. Just do it. Just do it. It'll be fun. And yeah, if you are into the show even remotely, you will have an amazing time, because I am that obsessed fan who goes out of the way to make sure everything is super nerdy. So everybody, if you like pirate stuff, if you like Izzy, because I keep injecting Izzy content into this show no matter what, and fun, we do podfic reading things, and we do Gay Pirate News Hour the first Saturday of every month, and we post all kinds of memes and all kinds of news and just good times and fun pirate things. So follow the Instagram at Our Flag Means Fanfiction, all one word, and you can subscribe to us on Spotify or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review, and you can give us all the stars. We like stars. You should give us a review and talk about how great we are. That would be cool. So if you... Hold on, where's the thing? All right, till next time, we're going to see you for part 2 of Ed and Izzy. And in the meantime, do creations, be cringe, and commit crime. Bye-bye.
Hey, bye.
Bye.